Does that mean that the Secretary Paulson is going to get what he's asked for, a completely clean bill, no protections for homeowners facing foreclosure, no restrictions on executive compensation for the firms?
Not necessarily. And again, we're all talking about this right now. I had a long conversation with Senator Shelby, my Republican counterpart, last evening on the Banking Committee, as well as dozens of members. I'm sure John has over the last day or so. People have a lot of ideas on what they think ought to be in or not in this package. My general thrust, George, is this. I think the authority, we need to give the Secretary the authority to work. These are complex issues. I don't think we ought to micromanage that part of it. I happen to believe very strongly, as you heard again the Secretary say this morning, that the cause of this issue is still the bad lending practices. The foreclosure issue still lurks. We can't just deal with that issue optically. You've got to deal with that issue of foreclosure, or this problem will persist.
Inside this legislation?
Well, not inside it. There are things that we might do to help clean up a lot of these bad mortgages out there, which are still luring around, millions of them potentially. We need to try and address that without compromising the ability of the Secretary to get rid of the toxic instruments that exist in these institutions that clog up the system where credit doesn't flow. So I think there'll be some effort with reciprocity. If we're going to spend taxpayer money to get rid of bad debt in these places, what is the reciprocal obligation?
From the firms.
From the firms or someplace. I haven't defined that yet. No one else has yet, but I think there's going to be a strong interest to deal with the Main Street aspects. As John just said.
We've already dealt with that when we passed the housing bill last summer. Now, I didn't vote for it because it had a $300 billion bailout for scam artists and speculators and others around in the housing industry. But there are a lot of tools in there to help the Federal Housing Administration deal with the foreclosure problems that's out there. We need to rise above partisan politics, and I know that that's a big statement right on the eve of an election. But we have to rise above this and deal with this as adults. The American economy depends on this. The American people are depending upon us, and I think they're looking to us to give the Secretary these powers as quickly as possible. There are a lot of well-meaning, well-intentioned ideas out there, but they don't need to be part of this package.